Namaskar, good morning. Thank you for braving the weather. As far as I'm concerned, the Habitat Centre is a wonderful place. I've been here many times, but I get lost every single time I come here. So if you've made it to this room, you're a good navigator as well. Thank you, Deepika. Thank you, Vishal and George. I'm Robin Boustead. I'm going to spend a little bit of time guiding you through some of the Travelife system. I'm going to give you some idea of what actually global sustainability in terms of travel is all about, why it's important. And you're absolutely right, George. We need to be thinking not just of our own businesses, but on the destination. So we're developing a sustainable travel system. And I think that whenever we think about sustainability within our own lives or within our businesses, within communities or regions or as a country as a whole, we need to try and think openly and inclusively. We need to try and find out ways, perhaps new ways, certainly better ways, of doing things that we've been used to doing in the past. Just to give you a little bit more background about my relationship with sustainability, 30 years ago I built a travel company in Australia. We started with 5 employees, we ended up with 130. I sold it for $30 million. It paid for me to go off and do things like explore the Himalaya and that kind of stuff. But I realized at the same time that the travel business that I had built was very much extractive. It was very much built on exploiting the opportunity and destinations to provide people with a nice holiday. And I really wasn't providing much back. So I went off on this sort of seminal journey across the Himalaya, and I realized that to walk from Arunachal to Pakistan, you can't do that alone. You can't do that unassisted. You have to rely on the communities there to help you. They provide you with shelter and food. And I thought, wow, this is actually a metaphor for travel in general. How much we actually rely on local communities and on local support systems to be able to give our clients a good time. And did we really recognize that? So that's how I got introduced to sustainability in the first place. I now coach about 120 companies between East Africa and Vietnam on how they can improve their own businesses on a sustainable pathway. I'm the lead consultant on a project to make Bhutan the greenest country in the world. I consult with the Thai governments and Indonesian governments on carbon calculation and green financing programs. I'm the project manager to build a global carbon calculation system with the 3 largest OTAs. I think you probably can guess who they are, and how we can then link that to green financing programs around the world. I'm the lead on a $200 million sustainable agriculture project in Nepal to make Nepal food resilient. And yeah, I'm still the only person that's walked across the Himalaya on the high route. I hope one day someone else will take that challenge on. Basically what I want you to do today is to be able to walk out of this room having developed an informed opinion about what sustainability is, what it is not, and what it can be for your business. If you have an informed opinion, I think you're going to be able to make an informed judgment. I've spoken to quite a few people in India over the last probably 5 years. There is a lot of misinformation here about what sustainability is and isn't. And I think that there is quite a lot of insecurity about how you could embark upon this journey, perceiving that you're unassisted. So I want you to also understand how much support there is for you should you want to go down this path. But I also want to be able to show you what the benefits are in going down this path. It's actually becoming a point in time, we're coming to a point in time where it's no longer about potential benefits, it's about necessity. So let's just talk about necessity. In 2020, it was published in 2021, Booking.com did some research about traveler motivations and why they wanted to go off and do different things. And they found that there was a significant increase in people's interest in culture, heritage, wanting to be able to see that the financial impact of tourism was going beyond just the company and actually being dispersed into communities. They also wanted to see more sustainable choices, but they expected the operator or the hotel, the supplier, to be providing those choices. 61% of travellers stated that at the beginning of the pandemic, they wanted to travel more sustainably in the future. And I actually think that the pandemic has made quite a big impact on the way people want to travel. They're not interested in such large groups anymore. They want to have a bit of distance between themselves and other people. They are more conscious about health and hygiene than they were in the past. So this is in 2021. Expedia then did some follow-up research, again, not specifically on sustainability, just to be able to find out what traveller motivations are. And things had changed quite a lot in 1 year. We had gone from 72% to 90% of consumers wanting sustainable options. Perhaps most telling is that 70% of consumers have avoided a destination because of a lack of sustainable credibility. Now, at the moment, you may have seen in the European news, Australian news, American news, that airports around the world are overflowing. There are now restrictions in Schiphol Airport on how you can actually get to the airport because the public transport system and the parking system is overwhelmed. The airport authority has requested airlines to bring in less flights because they are so full. So my question, which I posed in Rajasthan yesterday, is where are these travellers going? Because they ain't coming to India. They are making different choices about where they are going. And I think that there are two destinations in the world at the moment. There are those that are on the sustainable pathway and they are getting traffic, and there are those that are not. And they're not seeing much traffic because the traffic is there. The airlines are full. We're already back to more air routes than in 2019. 54% of clients preferred listings and information about sustainable options on the service provider's website. So if you don't have information about sustainability on your website, you know straight away that about half of your bounce rate is because you don't have relevant information there. And this is the exciting bit. Consumers are prepared to pay up to 38% more for a product because it's sustainable. So if there was a way to be able to reduce your costs, improve your operation, and make more money, that would make some pretty simple business sense. And you know that it's going to drive your demand, provide you with your communication and marketing system, and at the very least, mean that you can do better business. I just want to add to this. Just in the last few days, I got a message that one of the global OTAs, they're not one of the largest, but they are considerable. They have 2,000 operators in 80 countries. This OTA has just insisted that every single operator must be sustainable by the end of next year. Otherwise, they're out. So even the global OTAs now see sustainability as a source of competitive advantage in the international arena. And if you are not looking at sustainability from that perspective, you're missing an obvious opportunity. Let's just take a little bit of a step back. Sustainability, what actually is it? Well, the United Nations in 1988 came up with a definition of sustainable travel that still stands. And basically, it's about us behaving as custodians and guardians of what there is today for future generations. That grandchildren are going to be able to appreciate the same benefits, reap the same sort of rewards, and behave in the same sort of accountable and responsible way in the future as we would like to be doing today. It's kind of like we're just trying to be better versions of ourselves, or that we have been. And of course, it's linked to the Sustainable Development Goals. Tourism is quite unique because it is the only industry sector that is directly or indirectly linked to every single SDG. Now, you can take any other sector and you will find that there are some elements of the SDGs that are not represented. But tourism is in everything. So you do actually have an opportunity to have a positive benefit in many, many different ways. But let's go back to what George was saying. It's about small steps. This isn't about solving all of the problems in the world at once. There are no magic wands. Harry Potter is just a story. It's not sustainability. What sustainability is about is choosing your low-hanging fruit and moving one step at a time towards doing better business. It's also not a niche market. A niche market is something like cruises. Even ecotourism is a niche market. Okay, sustainability is about reducing your carbon footprint. It's about avoiding plastic. It's about taking more responsible transportation options. These are cross-cutting. Okay, they affect every type of travel. They affect every type of behavior within the travel environment. So sustainable travel isn't something that's just a novel area that maybe is going to appeal to a small part of the audience. We've already seen 90% of travelers are already looking for more sustainable options. It's pervasive. It's also not a fringe idea. It's not something that's just popped up in the last few years. In the 1990s, the Association of British Tour Operators, ABTA, and AMVR, which is the equivalent in the Netherlands, came together to develop a sustainable travel system. And out of that was born Travelife. So there is Travelife for operators, which is based in the Netherlands, and there is Travelife for accommodation, which is based in London with ABTA. They're sister organizations. And as much as possible, we try to be able to support each other. There are some differences, but I will mostly focus on the operator side of things today. If you want to be able to talk more about accommodation, then that's something with Toft, we're going to be discussing how to go about best dealing with the accommodation aspect of sustainability in India during the course of the next few days. We now have more than 20 European countries with sustainable standards for their own countries. And we have more than 60 countries around the world with their own sustainable standards. When you look at the number of regions and areas, for example, Hawaii, we have more than 100 sustainable standards for specific destinations. And this is something that I talked about yesterday with Rajasthan. How can we go about developing a sustainable standard that will be specific for each state within India? Is that realistic? Is it necessary? Is that some way that we could go about developing a specific destination as a region or an area that adds to the flavor? It adds to the asset base that tourism is using. And that's exactly what these standards do. So to give you a practical example, we have a standard that we're proposing to the GSTC for Bhutan. And in Bhutan, when you go to work or when you're on official business, you must wear the national dress. The go for men, the kira for women. That is a law in Bhutan. And the Bhutanese government wanted that to be introduced to their standard. Okay, we add it to their sustainability standard. And we propose that to the GSTC. Bhutan will now have its own unique standard for sustainable travel within the country. So that's something that we can do as an organization because Travelife is accredited to provide sustainable standard advice to countries, to regions, to companies at all levels of the tourism value chain. Is sustainable travel important? In Glasgow last year, there was COP26, and at COP26, the IPCC, the International Climate Change Report, was released. And there was, of many hundreds of pages, one statement that I think provides some hope for the future. If 10 to 30% of the population were to demonstrate commitment to low-carbon technologies, behaviors, and lifestyles, new social norms would be established. Okay, we're talking about a small percentage of the population adapting and changing its behaviours to be able to influence the broader arena. If we do that, we can avert a climate breakdown. If in fact that 30% of the population only changed 10%, reduced 10% of its carbon footprint, we will begin to stabilise climate change. It doesn't take a great deal to start making a big difference. For destination management or marketing organisations, industry sustainability is now a critical success factor. If your DMO, if your destination manager, Rajasthan Tourism, India Tourism Board, is not taking sustainability seriously, then they are letting you down as businesses. Okay, and I think that the responsibility for this needs, from your perspective, to be laid fairly and squarely at their feet. They're meant to be the industry leaders for you. They're meant to be showing you the path forward. They're meant to be guiding you, helping you navigate what is a very complex global environment. And if they are not taking sustainability seriously, then they are really seriously letting you down. And then, of course, there is the local picture, your businesses, where you can actually make a real difference. That does reduce your bottom line. Even for hotels, we see that any investment in sustainable actions repays within 3 years. And this is also why green finance programs are becoming more and more important around the world, because some of those changes, some of that adaptation is expensive. So then we actually work with banks, we work with the finance industry to be able to develop subsidized loans for green adaptation. You can enhance your company's reputation. Okay, obviously there are new business partners. And in fact, in the last 6 months, of all of the companies that I've spoken to that are certified, every single one has had approaches, new partners in the last 6 months because they're involved with a sustainability program. So if you're not getting emails from people knocking at your door, it's because, well, they're knocking on somebody else's door. It also creates a healthier environment for you, your employees, and your suppliers. Okay, it actually makes business easier to do, not necessarily just better. So if it's important, let's just have a look at a couple of practical benefits. At the moment, we have about 15,000 members in Travelife from around the world. Of that, just over 3,000 are based in Europe. By having a certified standard, by having a partner standard and a certified standard, they have shared values, they have a shared understanding, they have a communal understanding of how business is done and how they do business and operate. That's a really great foundation for being able to develop a new relationship. It's the best way of being able to find a new partner. And I think that you will find that some of those people that reach out to you are in fact Travelife members already, and they're trying to find another Travelife member to do business with because they're tired of doing business with someone that doesn't get it. And then in terms of marketing, your clients are asking you for new types of information. Maybe they want some more information about health and safety protocols. Maybe they want to know more about the destination and the impacts of what the destination is doing with communities or with wildlife. How do you put that information together? What's relevant? What's not relevant? And that's where sustainability actually helps you refine your communication and your marketing materials to provide the right information at the right time. So why Travelife? Well, I've mentioned we were started in 2007. There are a number of international certification programs. You can go to the GSTC website and you will see a bunch of them. But Travelife is the only one that works at all levels, from international DMOs down to micro businesses. We also have the largest footprint in Asia. And I think as of the end of August, we will see now 3,500 members. We have another 500 members coming into the system this month. That is, in Europe, the largest footprint, and it will take us up to about 16,000 members globally. So it's a significant pool of other partners to potentially be working with. There are 3 levels. You become engaged, okay? It's not engaged like to be married, it's just involved. you get access to the system for free. You can look at all of the criteria, you can understand what's involved. Then there is a membership fee, and there are different ways of being able to deal with membership fees depending on the destination. We'll discuss that a little bit more later. Then there is partner level. Once you become a member, you are then assigned a coach. So we have here someone like me, someone like Sebastian or Richard, will then be on call. A coach is not a consultant. They are not there to tell you how to do business. They are there to help guide you through the Travelife system. Okay. From being engaged, it normally takes 3 to 6 months to become a partner. Now, the partner level is an intermediary step. We have this step for operators. We do not have this step for hotels. And that's a challenge that we're going to see if we can overcome in India by having some form of intermediary step for hotel accommodations to encourage them to get more involved. So you pay your membership fee, you become a partner, you then get a silver badge, which is internationally recognized as being a commitment, a serious commitment to sustainability. After that, if you're as good as George, you do it in 1 year, you become certified. But most organizations take a little bit longer than that. It's normally within 18 months to 2 years, people get to being fully certified. Okay, that's the gold star. In both situations, you're going to be reviewed. Okay, now, as a partner, it will be your coach that actually reviews your progress and decides whether you should be rewarded that certificate or not. Whereas the gold level, that's independent certification. That's the third-party audit that we were talking about. Before we go into more detail on the Travelife system, I just want to touch on this standards thing again. I've noticed that there are a couple of sort of voluntary standards in India for certification. And voluntary standards are a nice way to think that you could make the world more sustainable, but they're not particularly useful for 2 reasons. First of all, just to say that you're a nice guy doesn't make you one. So just to say that you're sustainable because you self-assess yourself to be sustainable doesn't make you sustainable. And secondly, just because you say you're a nice guy and somebody else says they're a nice guy doesn't mean to say you're going to be the best of friends. So by having a common standard, by having a standard that we all use, means that we do already have a value set that we share. And we know, even before we meet, we are more likely to be good friends. In terms of standards, there are many. Okay? And Travelife actually conforms and embraces 9 different global standards. From the UN, ISO systems, EMAS, the ILO, GRI, which is the global reporting, obviously GSTC, OECD standards. Travelife covers all of them. So you can actually use these standards as well on your website. But most companies don't because the Travelife carries more weight. Okay? It's also industry specific. So it's going to be recognized by your potential partners rather than these other standards. So we've already discussed why the standard system being independent is important. And perhaps the killer reason why you wouldn't want to have a self-assessment reason is because it's now considered to be greenwashing. Just to be able to say that you do your own self-assessment, the rest of the world is going to sit there and say, well, yeah, okay. It sounds like you're just saying what you think the rest of the world wants to hear rather than knowing that that's what you're doing. Okay, let's get a little bit more detailed in what Travelife is all about. We use criteria. There are many different sorts of criteria that embrace every aspect of a travel business. And we have minimum reporting criteria, which are called mandatory criteria, and we have optional criteria. The idea is that the options are good ideas. You should be looking into it, but it's not compulsory to fulfill it. In the partner level, we have 146 criteria, of which 77 are mandatory. Okay? And by mandatory, they're not onerous. You're not going to have to go out and do something extraordinary to be able to fulfill these criteria. They are things that I am quite sure you are already doing. It's just a case of formalizing it and reporting it. You already have a registered business. You have a registered business certificate. So in the criteria for do you have a registered business, you put the certificate. Job done. Okay? So a lot of these are easy wins. Some of them are going to make you think a bit. Some of them are going to make you think quite a lot. But that's the whole point about sustainability. It shouldn't be easy, but it needs to be possible. Okay? It needs to be achievable. So this is the second party verification level. You would then at some point say to me as your coach, I am ready for you to do an assessment, a desk assessment. And I will go through and have a look at it and refer to somebody else within Travelife, just as an independent sounding board, have a look at it. And if we are both content, we will say, okay, we award you the partner level. When it comes to the auditing of the Travelife Certified, which is the third party, that's a little bit more complicated. We actually have to book an auditor, we have to get them to come. But now we have auditors within South Asia, so it's much easier to be able to access auditors. We don't have to fly them in from other countries. We actually have auditors within India. And both processes, that assessment lasts for 2 years. So the other idea of sustainability is continuous improvement. Yeah? You don't just do the job done, finish, I'm off to lunch, done. No, it's something that you're going to keep working at, and every time you have an audit, whether it's partner level or certified level, me as your coach or the auditor is going to want to see some form of improvement, that you're doing something different, something better than you were doing before. Now, we have some business management tools within the Travelife system that we're going to talk about, so you can actually track that improvement, track that progress over time. Yeah? Because you need to make that public as well. We want you to be sharing that information with your clients, with your partners. And you can say, hey, we're on this sustainability journey, and this is what we're doing, and this is how we're doing better than we were doing before. That is really powerful information to be able to share with the market. We can customize standards. I've mentioned that about Bhutan. Just to fill in, if you as an industry, whether it's as an industry association, an industry body, or as a tourism destination, if you said, actually, we feel that there is a compelling reason to want to do things differently, then we can do so. It's time consuming because it means we have to go to the UN to get it certified. But it is possible, and we have done it for many destinations. In fact, this is me initiating the process in Bhutan in April. Okay, and we will have the Bhutan standard done by the middle of next year. 110 tourism professionals in a room is a lot of different opinions. So I would be cautious about wanting to go down this path, but it is possible. To develop our standards, we have to create some MOUs. There's a lot of paperwork. It's quite a lengthy process. So I'm going to skip over this because for you guys, I want to focus a little bit more on the Travelife system. And as George mentioned, we have a learning centre. At the moment, there are 16 courses in the Learning Centre, and they cover every aspect of your business and how you can make it more sustainable. We are currently going to upgrade the Learning Centre, and by February, March next year, it will become much more interactive with a lot more video tutorials in multiple languages. So if you as businesses said, actually, we want to be able to have more support in Hindi for transportation because our drivers, their English is not so great, okay, we'll do it. It's really important that the Learning Centre provides you and your staff with all of the information we can possibly give you to be able to make your businesses more sustainable. If you are interested in Travelife, you get access to this for free. Being part of the Learning Centre is something that we can turn on, and you can start going through the courses without becoming a member. so that you can actually begin to prime your organization in advance for wanting to be able to go down this pathway. I think that the Learning Center is perhaps one of the important tools you would have got into at the very beginning. It makes such a big difference because people start to put their own jobs and their own roles into a new perspective. They begin to realize how important their job is to the rest of the organization and why it's important to sustainability. That's a nice bit of job satisfaction that your staff currently, I'm sure, don't have because they don't see it that way. There is also a way to be able to monitor your learning progress. Okay, so we have a learning tracking system, and you as the business manager can actually see how your staff are doing, who's done more courses. If you want to have some form of reward program within your company for people that are getting more engaged with sustainability, this is how you do it. Okay, and in the system, there are 10 major criteria that you're going to have to report on. Although some of these might not be relevant. So, for example, there are some businesses that are cruises, and therefore land transport doesn't really count. Partner agencies, section number 4, is if you provide your clients to another agency in a destination. So if you have multi-country tours, for example, you send someone to Nepal, they go to Kathmandu for a few days on an excursion within a tour, and there is a local operator there looking after them, then you would need to complete section number 4. If you do not use partner agencies, you just ignore section number 4. It's not applicable. So there are some areas that are going to be easier and some that are going to make you think a little bit more. And we're going to have a look at a few of the obvious questions that people have to start off with. This is how the system looks. They're concertina-based modules that gradually expand. You'll see a number on the right-hand side of each criteria that says how many different points there are in each one. And now we're going to look at some specific criteria. Social policy and human rights. Each of these criteria has got a reporting tab, a guidance tab, remarks, action plan, and best practice. Reporting tab is where you put your information. Guidance is where Travelife provides you with advice about what to put in the reporting. And I've just had a little chat with some of my colleagues here, and we're going to work on an India-specific guidance that will give you the legislation that is relevant. So you're probably going to learn something about the legislative environment of your business and a recommended action so that you can then know precisely what it is you should be putting and why you should be putting it and understand the context of it. Remarks are where you get to have dialogue with your coach. It's where you get to ask people like me questions. Action plan we'll talk about. This is part of the business management toolbox. And best practices. Travelife members from around the world share their best practices with other Travelife members. So you can actually see what other companies elsewhere are doing. Because if we don't share information, if we don't help each other, we're going to make this journey much, much harder. So be prepared to see that guidance, remarks, action plan, and best practices. Be prepared to see some brands of companies that you probably already know who are part of Travelife, and they're sharing with you what they do and how they do it. Okay? It's like a little private window into other businesses and how they operate. That's kind of reassuring as well, because often as a business owner, I know what it's like, you can feel quite isolated. It's actually quite hard sometimes to know who to turn to ask for advice. And in South Asia, I think that's perhaps even more so. There is a little bit of a fear about competitors. There hasn't been a great deal of cooperation within the industry in the past. So how to overcome that, I think this is one of the nice ways. The best practice examples is a nice way to overcome that. And if you have your own best practices that you want to contribute, I strongly encourage you to do so. As an auditor, one of the jobs I have when I go into a company is to try and find examples of best practices. And then to sit down with the company and say, look, you might not realize this, but the way you do this particular thing is extraordinarily good. And I would like you to be willing to share that with the rest of the world, because it's fantastic. And you should be acknowledged. And actually there is now, among Travelife members, there is quite a lot of competition to be able to get in your best practices where you can. Okay, let's just, these things that you're already doing, procurement, using recycled paper, trying to reduce paper, trying to reduce plastic. If you can have a zero tolerance to plastic within your organization, it's very hard, I know it's impossible, but the idea, the goal, is to be able to get there. And I just want to mention here, you'll see there's 3 little traffic lights, green, orange, and red. Okay, now the traffic light system is a nice simple way for you to be able to have a quick overview as to how well you're doing. If as your coach I give you a green light, it means that you have satisfied the reporting criteria. Yeah, you don't have to do anything else. If it's orange, it means you still got something else to do. Yeah, I've made a comment, or maybe you need to review it in some way. As a coach, I very, very rarely use red. Okay, because it's very hard for someone to fail at something. It's normally something that just needs to be improved in some way. But the idea is that very quickly you can get an overview as to exactly where you're at and what work is yet to be done. Okay, another one of the tools, there's the action plan, which helps you allocate resources, staff members, that kind of stuff to different activities within your business. We also provide things like online questionnaires for clients. So you can rebadge these, you can copy them, put them into your own Google accounts. The idea is that, again, we're just trying to give you as many tools as we possibly can to make your life easier. And if there are things that you turn around and say, hey, I wish there was a tool for this, or I wish there was a tool for that, then tell us, we'll make it. It's okay. Because your idea is going to benefit many, many other companies too. Okay, these are the action plans. So for each action, you get this financial resources, time allocation, staff, responsible staff. In the new year, this is going to be interactive. So you're going to be able to sort by staff member. You can get reports as to the progress by a staff member as to how they're doing with the things that they're meant to be doing. And all of this, I think you're beginning to see, is part of this continuous development system. Okay, so we do baseline assessments, as George mentioned. You develop a sustainability policy or a range of different policies. You then create action plans, which you enact, you do them. Yeah, sustainability is about action. Then you monitor it and you report on it, and that reporting is public. Yeah, it goes onto your website. It needs to be something that you share with the rest of the world, because that's what other business partners and clients are actually going to be looking for. They don't want to hear some pretty story about a community or a school or something like that you helped somewhere. That's nice, but what they actually want to see is, when did you first start doing it? What difference did it make? How have you continued? What now happens? And the development of that story over time. Because it's easy for me tomorrow to go out and be a nice guy and help lots of different people, and then 1 week later, stop. But I've got all the content that I want on my website. So the whole point about the reporting is that you're showing this ongoing connectivity with sustainability, this ongoing engagement, because that is actually what gives you credibility. That's the authentic partnership building stuff that people are looking for. And that brings me to our international buyers. Okay. So Travelife does encourage its members to selectively, preferentially work together, because we know it works. We know, even if you've had a business relationship with somebody for the last 30 years, never ever assume that there isn't a potentially better business partner out there. Because there nearly always is. Just like assuming that you think that you know a subject, there's always someone that knows more. Okay, and that is the best thing, I think, from a business perspective about Travelife. you have an enormous pool of potential business partners. And a lot of them are probably going to be better business partners than you've worked with before. Easier to work with. Nicer to work with. And it's that community that lies at the heart of sustainability. There is strength in numbers. Now, I've just done this year two workshops in Nepal where the Travelife members, the operators, said, we don't just want to be sitting here talking to other operators. We want to be talking to all sorts of sustainability organizations. I said, okay. So now we have Travelife workshops which are sustainable business workshops. Whether you're a service provider, a paper manufacturer, I don't care. If you're sustainable, you're welcome. And that has done so much to strengthen the businesses already involved in Travelife. Whether it's water management, whether it's energy, waste management, whatever it is, we have everybody come along. Okay, I mentioned earlier that it's free to become engaged. You can get access to the system, you can get access to the learning center. If you actually want to have a coach guide you through the partner level and then become a partner level, you do need to become a member. It's $200 for companies with less than 25 what we call full-time equivalent staff members, FTEs. Okay? If you have 2 part-time staff members doing 20 hours a week, that is 1 FTE. There are ways of being able to subsidize this, but we have minimum requirements to be able to do that. That is the amount of engagement, the amount of businesses, and also, are we working with an industry association? Are we working with a tourism board? Or are we just working with businesses? It depends. With the project that I have in Bhutan, there are some resources that we can call upon, but there are going to be some strings attached. So you're going to need to decide whether you would like to do this journey on your own, as your own business, or is this something that you would like to collectively want to do? And that's a conversation I'm going to leave Toff to have with you at a later date. Because all I want to do today is for you to walk out of here being informed. Okay. I think that probably a lot of the criteria, as George mentioned, I think you're probably doing a lot of them already. Certainly more than half. So of the 77 criteria, that's probably 35, 40 that you might actually have to sit down and scratch your head about. If I told you that there were 40 things that you had to try and decide in the next 3 months that would open the door to a whole bunch of potential business partners and to international acknowledgement of the effort that you make in your business, I think you'd think that wasn't too much of an ask. And I agree with George. I don't think it's that hard. I don't think it's that difficult. And if you have a coach, I think it actually gets even easier. Because Travelife is the only organization that provides coaching at the intermediate level. We really, really want to see businesses get involved with sustainability. If you decide that you only ever want to stay a partner, okay, that's your choice. We don't mind. We'd prefer you to be fully certified, because then you're getting really all the recognition that you deserve. But if you feel that it's too onerous or too difficult, okay, we'll live with that. But I think that you're probably already doing more than enough to be able to get involved with the system and see how achievable it really is. So the next steps. Well, this afternoon, Toft and Travelife are going to be having a conversation about how best to be able to make the system and the coaching as accessible as possible to all of you. You can work directly with Travelife. You're also going to be able to work with Toft. So if you're a business that has accommodation and an operation combined, then we're going to try and find a way to help you bring those together and make it as easy as possible to administer. But first, I would also suggest that you become familiar with the Travelife system. It costs nothing to play with. Okay? I'd certainly just have a look at it and see what you think. And as a takeaway, I hope that you start taking sustainability seriously. it's changing the nature of the travel industry for good. It's already changed, actually. And I feel a little bit sad personally, because I first started running tours to India, to the Indian Himalaya back in 1993. And I could see the change coming, even in the 90s, and I did nothing about it. And now we're in 2023, and it feels long overdue for me to be standing here having this conversation with you guys. So I hope that you do take it seriously. I certainly do, and I will give it my full effort if you want to get involved. Thank you very much indeed for your time, your attention.